When the Retroid Pocket Flip 2 was announced, I wasn't particularly excited. The reason is simple. I already owned the Retroid Pocket 5 and I absolutely love the device. In fact, it's the handheld that really got me into emulation in the first place. But after spending time with more portable devices, I started feeling like the Snapdragon X65 was beginning to show its limits. So when the Flip 2 arrived, I wasn't expecting it to impress me that much. I was completely wrong. After using it for a while, this became one of my favorite handhelds and honestly, one of the most underrated devices currently available. The biggest reason is the form factor. This is probably the handheld I've taken outside the house more than any other device I own. More than my Odin 3, more than my Retroid Pocket 5, more than pretty much everything else in my collection. The clamshell design is simply fantastic for portable gaming. When you are done playing, you close it, you throw it in your pocket or bag without worrying about the screen getting scratched or damaged. It's one of those features that sounds simple until you actually start using it every day. And once you do, it's difficult to go back. Another thing I absolutely love is the ergonomics. In fact, I think they are significantly better than the Retroid Pocket 5. The main reason is the position of the analog sticks. Because they are located on the top half of the controls, my thumbs naturally rest on them. I don't need to stretch or adjust my grip, and as a result, I can play for hours without feeling uncomfortable. It's a small design choice that makes a huge difference in everyday use. Performance is another area where I think people underestimate this device. Now let's be realistic, this isn't the most powerful handheld on the market. If you're expecting flawless performance in every PS2 or GameCube title, you will occasionally run into some limitations. There are certain games that require tweaking and there are some demanding titles that won't run perfectly. But honestly, the number of problematic games is much smaller than many people think. For the vast majority of PS2, GameCube, Wii and older systems, the experience is excellent. Wii emulation in particular has been surprisingly good, and while I don't primarily use this handheld for older systems like NES, SNES or Game Boy Advance, those platforms still look fantastic on this screen. Everything is sharp, colorful and enjoyable to play. Personally, I use this device mostly for Android gaming. Fortnite has become one of my favorite games to play on the Flip 2, and thanks to the comfortable controls, it's been an amazing experience. I've also completed several games on this handheld, including titles like Manhunt and Super Mario Sunshine, and I never felt like I was compromising compared to larger devices. In many ways, the Flip 2 feels like the perfect balance between portability and performance. That said, it definitely isn't perfect. My biggest complaint is the fan. Even in its quiet mode, it's noticeably louder than the Retroid Pocket 5. It's not loud enough to completely run the experience, but it's always there. My guess is that the clamshell design simply doesn't leave as much room for airflow, forcing the fan to work harder than it does on more traditional handhelds. Another issue I have is with the hinge. While the hinge itself feels solid, I'm not a huge fan of all the viewing positions. The position that feels most comfortable to me is the standard 90-degree angle. The problem is that if you make a sudden movement or adjust your grip too quickly, the screen can sometimes move into the next hinge position. It's not a major flaw, but it's something I notice regularly while using the device. Heat is another concern worth mentioning. I personally haven't spent much time using this handheld for Switch emulation or other extremely demanding workloads. However, I've seen numerous reports from users saying that the device can get quite warm during heavier emulation, particularly around the face buttons and controls. So if you're planning to push the device to its limits, that's something worth keeping in mind. One comparison I kept making while testing this handheld was with the AYN Thor. After spending time with both devices, I realized they actually offer somewhat similar levels of performance for many systems. The difference is that the Thor includes a second screen, while the Flip 2 focuses entirely on comfort and portability. And honestly, when it comes to ergonomics, I think the Flip 2 wins. Without a grip attached, the Thor can feel awkward in games that rely heavily on both analog sticks. The Flip 2 doesn't have that problem. Everything feels natural from the moment you pick it up. So, would I recommend the Retroid Pocket Flip 2? Absolutely. In fact, I think it's one of the easiest handhelds to recommend right now. It's comfortable, it's portable, it offers great performance for PS2, GameCube, Wii, and everything below. The clamshell design is generally useful, and the overall experience is simply fun. Does it have flaws? Of course. The fan can be annoying, the hinge positions aren't perfect, and thermals could be better under heavier workloads. But none of these issues are enough to overshadow what makes this device special. If you're looking for a handheld that's easy to carry everywhere, powerful enough for most 6th generation systems, and comfortable enough for long gaming sessions, the Retroid Pocket Flip 2 deserves a lot more attention than it's getting. For me, it's become one of the biggest surprises of the year, and a device that I keep reaching for even when I have significantly more powerful handhelds sitting right next to it.